Welcome to the Grace Period, where we get real about attorney mental health and well-being and pull back the veil on the high-stakes world of big law. I'm your host, Emily Logan Stedman. In this demanding profession, it's crucial that we don't lose ourselves in the hustle for billable hours. On the Grace Period, we have honest conversations about striking a better balance, developing coping strategies, and destigmatizing mental health. It is time to prioritize our shared humanity, to find our grace period. So far on this season of the Grace Period, we've defined big law, defined the billable hour, discussed how to track the billable hour, and reviewed opening and closing rituals. Today, we'll talk about tracking your matters or files. Most attorneys have more than one case or matter, sometimes significantly more than one case or matter, on their plate at any given time. It can be overwhelming and a lot to keep track of. You'll hear a lot about taking ownership of a file. The best associates take ownership. And we'll talk more about that and what it means in episode 7. But as an intro, one way to show ownership of the file is to know where the matter stands at all times. This means knowing the file or matter number and details, identifying who is on the team, tracking action items and tasks, calendaring deadlines, and more. There's no one way to do this, and for most firms, there will be some automated system for doing it. But like everything else I talk about, it is important that you have a system and tools to do this in a way that works for you. If it doesn't work for you, you won't keep track, so it's got to be personalized. I do this by keeping a running case chart, and I'll put a link to my chart in the show notes. My chart lists the matter name, jurisdiction, case number and case name, and judge. I am a litigator after all. It includes my firm's internal case number. Most firms will have this. It's how you organize files in the internal document system. I also list all of the internal team members, partners, associates, paralegals, and more. Next, I'll list the case status, upcoming and past filing deadlines, action items and their deadlines, and the next anticipated steps. Then there is a spot for notes, things I want or need to keep in mind from the past or going forward. I review this chart every week. I have a reminder on my calendar every Thursday to review and update my chart. But I also update it when anything substantive happens in a case or I get a new file and I need to add it to the chart. When files resolve or end, I move them to a closed matters document. As you might imagine, the closed file can be really, really long. But it's helpful to keep note of the closed files for 2 reasons. One, I can see all of my work. I know what I've done and for what clients and what partners since I joined my firm. 2, if you change firms, you'll have to do a conflicts check. This chart can serve as a list of the clients your new firm needs to run conflicts on. A master case chart is also helpful before, during, and after vacations. We'll talk more about that on episode 9. I'll also give the caveat I always give. You do not have to do anything the exact same way I do. You've worked hard to get where you are, and you likely already have tricks and tools to stay on top of things. As you move through this profession, the number of things vying for your time, both personally and professionally, will skyrocket, and they will increase year over year. It is critical that you continue to hone the tricks and tools you already have, that you experiment with ways to stay organized in a way that is true to you and works for you. Otherwise, it simply won't stick. It's also important to build flexibility into your systems. What works for you year 1 should be finessed and updated as you move through your career, adapting to your needs as you and your career grow. For me, I do my case chart in Word. I'm pretty simple and old-fashioned when it comes to Word docs and charts. But you could, of course, do this in Excel, a Google Doc, or other tech-based tools. Some folks include their legal assistants on their tracking charts. And that reminds me, in a future season, I should talk about delegating to assistants, paralegals, and other attorneys, something they definitely don't teach you in law school. But regarding the tracking chart, if you include your assistant in the chart, you can delegate updating the chart, teach them how to add new matters to the chart or remove them and move closed files to another document. And you can have regular meetings to make sure matters are moving forward appropriately. You can also use this chart with your teammates as an agenda for a meeting or a reminder of where things stand. Again, I'll include in the show notes a link to the template that I use for my master chart. Take it and run with it. Make it yours and start owning your files. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Grace Period. I hope this discussion has provided some insights about exerting control over your files and taking ownership of them. Next week, we'll talk about time blocking and taking control of your calendar. Remember, you don't have to sacrifice your well-being for career success. By prioritizing self-care, setting boundaries, and seeking support, you can survive and even thrive in the law. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. That is the path to our grace period. Disclaimer. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute professional advice of any kind, including legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is created by listening to this podcast.